thinking about it. I've been thinking about all the things you do.
Hey fellow foodies, it's Faye from facefood.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this apple caramel cheesecake. So in my bowl I just have my crust ingredients combined. We have some graham cracker crumbs, cinnamon, nutmeg, sugar, salt, and maple syrup. And I'm going to go ahead and add in our melted butter all at once. And I did let the melted butter actually cool to room temp, just going to be easier to work with that way. Alright, and I'm just going to use my big spoon here to give it a mix. Alright, and then I'm going to go in with my clean hands to finish this up and really combine it well. And you can see it's going to look like wet sand. It clenches together when you kind of crush it in your hands, and that's what we want. And you might need a little bit more butter or less butter than the recipe states. Just kind of feel it out and use your judgment. Alright, so I have a regular cake pan, and it's lined with parchment paper, just a parchment circle, and I greased it really well with my homemade pan grease, which the recipe is on the blog, but you can also just use cooking spray, and just make sure to grease its life out, okay, so it doesn't stick. So you can see I'm just going in with my hands. I used my hands to spread the crust all over, and now I'm using my hands to press it in as flat as I can before going to this measuring cup. The measuring cup isn't greased or anything, and you can see it's not sticking, which is perfect, and it really helps flatten the crust nice and evenly. It also helps with the sides, so that's why I like using it. Alright, so we're going to do our best. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is going to be covered anyways, so don't be a perfectionist and overdo it. Alright, so this is ready to go. We're going to bake this at 350 for about 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, we'll just set it to the side and work on our cheesecake. Alright, so I have my cream cheese in the bowl of my stand mixer, which is fitted with a paddle attachment. And my cream cheese is at room temp. And I'm going to just give this a mix on the lowest setting for about 5 minutes. And after that, what I want to do is I want to scrape the bowl and the paddle down really well. Which I'm going to do at this point. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in the first set of ingredients, which is some sugar, nutmeg, salt, cinnamon. It's all on the blog, but the first set of ingredients is what we're going to add. And it's going to be just mixed on the lowest setting, the speed setting I should say. And actually, before we even get started, I'm going to scrape down the bowl. You're going to see that this is a theme. You really need to make sure you scrape down the bowl really well when you're making cheesecake, because you want to prevent lumps and you want to make sure everything's incorporated well. So again, I'm going to slow this down, stop it, and then totally scrape down the bowl and paddle yet again. Alright, now we can go ahead and get this going. And you're just going to mix until everything's combined. It's important with cheesecake, we don't want to really incorporate air. So that's why we're keeping it on the lowest setting, and we are just going slow with it, okay? Alright, so now I'm going to add in my lemon zest. And I'm going to actually give this a scrape because it's clinging to the paddle. Alright, we'll give it a light mix here. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and scrape down the bowl yet again. Get the sides as best as I can. Get the bottom and the paddle as best as I can. Alrighty, and then we can go ahead and turn the mixer back on, and before I do that, actually I'll add in some sour cream, and then we'll turn it back on and give it a mix. And again, after just a few seconds, I'm going to give it a good scraping so that the sour cream can really be incorporated. And this recipe is like 90% scraping, 10% cooking. So, all right, so now we're ready to go with our eggs. We're gonna add it in 4 additions, and you're not gonna see it on the video because I did forget to do it during this part. But at this point, you want to also add in your vanilla extract. Now you can see I'm really being patient with it. I'm letting each addition mix very thoroughly before adding in the next addition of eggs. And also you want to ideally scrape down the bowl really well between each addition as well. And of course, everything I'm using is at room temperature. The eggs, the cream cheese, the sour cream, the heavy cream, everything dairy, it needs to be at room temperature. Okay, it's gonna mix more easily for you if it's all at the same temperature, so that's why I emphasize it. All right, so we added in our last addition, and like I said, you would ideally add the vanilla in there as well at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a nice scraping, and like I said, again, ideally you would scrape down the bowl really well between each addition. All right, so I'm just gonna give this a mix until the last bit of egg is incorporated. All right, so now that everything's in, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the mixer, and I'm going to give this a really good scraping. We are almost at the finish line, so I'm really wanting to give it a good scraping so that we prevent these lumps that can build up with these dairy products. So now it's ready for the heavy cream. I'm just gonna slowly pour in this heavy cream, which is again at room temp, while the mixer is going on the low setting, and we get all the cream in there. And all these things, the sour cream, the heavy cream, it adds richness. It's gonna add nice moisture to it, and it really adds richness to our cheesecake. So it's gonna be very good. So now I'm adding in the lemon juice, just from 1 medium lemon, and that's gonna add a bit of tang to go along with our cream cheese and our sour cream. So once the lemon is in there, I give it a good scrape, try to get the bottom, which can be often ignored when you're scraping the bowl well. So make sure not to do that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start the mixer back up. And we're gonna mix this on the lowest setting yet again, just until everything's combined. It doesn't take too long. And now I took it off the mixer, and I'm gonna give it a very good scraping, and making sure to get the bottom, the sides, all of it, and to see and check out the batter and see if there's any lumps in there. And if there are, I just use my rubber spatula to kind of work it out. If you wanted to, you can also use the paddle attachment to mix them out as well. But anyways, this is our cheesecake batter ready to go. And I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into our prepared crust. You can see there's some holes in our crust, but not to worry, that just happened during baking. It's gonna be covered up anyways, so no big deal. All right, so we're gonna just pour all our batter in there. And my mom taught me to get every last bit of product into the pan, so that's what I'm doing. All right, so this is ready to go into our oven. Our oven is preheated at 350. We're gonna bake it at 350 for 30 minutes, turn down the heat at 325, and bake it for another 35 minutes. And then we're gonna turn the oven off, but leave the pan in there and let it residually cook for another 20 minutes. And you can see what I'm doing here is I'm preparing my water bath. And you can use any kind of shallow pan like this, and you're going to put boiling water in it, and this is what the cheesecake is going to cook in. So we're going to put it all together in the oven. Okay, so after it bakes, I want to show you how it should look. So the outsides are pretty set, but you can see it's still jiggly, but it's not liquid to the touch, and that is what a cheesecake should look like after it's baked. Ignore the swirl. I actually had to add the vanilla extract last minute because I totally forgot, so that's why there's a swirl there, but it's going to be covered up regardless. So yours won't look like this because you will remember to add the vanilla, unlike I did, but regardless it will be covered up. So anyways, I'm going to let this cool at room temp for about half an hour, and then I'm going to cover it with foil, and we're going to refrigerate this for 24 hours. Alright, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and prep the apple pie filling, which will go on top of our cheesecake. So I have some Granny Smith apples, I have some Golden Delicious. You can use Honeycrisp, Fuji, any good baking apple will do. And I have this in a saucepan with some cinnamon, sugar, butter, we got a bit of nutmeg in there, salt. And I'm going to just give this all a toss. This is over medium to medium-high heat. And there's also granulated sugar and brown sugar. I used a mix of both. And what we're going to do is just basically cook this for about 10 to 15 minutes. And about halfway through, I'm going to go ahead and add a slurry, which is our apple cider and cornstarch combined. And what that's going to do, it's going to really thicken everything up. We're going to get a nice gooey, like caramel mixture to go along with our filling. And you can see I added in the vanilla. You can also add it off heat. Either way will work. And again, I'm going to just cook this until the apples they're cooked, but they're not mushy. Okay, I do want a little bit of bite to them. So for me, that took about 10 to 15 minutes. Just give it a taste. Keep tasting them until you're happy with the texture. And you can see our lovely filling bubbling away. If that's not a picture of fall, I don't know what is. Alright, so you can see what I'm talking about. The slurry really helps thicken the filling. And it's so much better than the canned stuff and the jarred stuff and whatever the heck. The store-bought stuff is no comparison to homemade apple pie filling. Absolutely none. Alright, so once we're done and we're happy with the texture, we're just going to place it in a different container, a bowl or some shallow dish, and along with all the goo that goes with it, okay? So then we're going to let it cool at room temp for half an hour, and then you cover it and then place it in the fridge overnight. Alright, so the next day, here is our cheesecake. I'm using a blowtorch to unmold this, and what this will do is it helps the butter in the crust really loosen up and melt up, so that we can actually unmold this. If you don't have a blowtorch, you can also just dip this into a shallow pan filled with boiling water and do it that way. Alright, so I'm using a good old cake board. Just makes my life a lot easier with this step here. So I just flipped it onto the cake board, and then I'm going to use my blowtorch. I highly encourage you guys to look into investing into a blowtorch. I mean, they're 15-20 bucks at your local hardware store, but if you make pastries or you make desserts a lot, they're really, really helpful. Alright, so that's my PSA for blowtorches today. Alright, so you can see I blowtorched the top, and now I'm going through to the sides. Of course, that is a cardboard bottom, so I'm making sure to be careful. But you really just want to be thorough with it and be careful because it will be hot. And you can see it really unmolds very easily because we grease this very well with our pan grease, and the blowtorch really helps a ton. And again, if you don't have a blowtorch, just use piping hot water and it will do the same thing. All right, so now we are good to go in terms of unmolding it. And now we have to get it right side up. So I'm gonna just use another cake board and I'm gonna carefully, quickly flip this over. And if you are scared to handle this cheesecake, what you can do is actually freeze it instead of refrigerate it, and it'll be a lot easier to unmold and handle this. Alright, so now that it's unmolded and right side up, we can go ahead and have fun decorating it. So I just took the apple pie filling from the fridge, and I'm just going to spoon it over the top of our cheesecake. And I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch on the outsides empty. So you can really just use a large spoon or an offset spatula to help spread this mixture as evenly as possible. And this is totally optional, but I like to decorate it if you really want to impress your guests, impress your family, whatever it may be. Maybe just impress yourself. Go ahead and pipe some homemade whipped cream on the outsides. I'm just doing some small rosettes. What I also did, which wasn't filmed for some reason, is I took some salted caramel sauce, my homemade salted caramel sauce, and I drizzled it on top of the apple pie filling. Just takes it up a notch, and of course this is an apple caramel cheesecake, so it's pretty on brand, you know what I mean? So this is our apple caramel cheesecake. You can see how beautiful it looks. If you ever invite anyone and you make this for them, they'll think you're running a bakery out of your own home because it looks professional, it looks beautiful. So let me go ahead and cut into this for you so you can just see how rich and creamy it looks. And of course the first slice is always the ugliest, but we'll make do. And be gentle when you're cutting into it, and of course hot water or just heat in general is your friend when you're cutting into anything. So let me show you our slice here. Again, it's not super picturesque because it is the first slice, but you can still see just how delicious it looks. The apples and caramel is kind of oozing down the side. You can see the rich, creamy cheesecake layer. It's fantastic. So I hope you guys like this. Please like the video if you do like it. Comment below if you have any comments and questions. I always love interacting with you guys, even if it's just hi. That's more than enough for me. I always appreciate your support. I really, really do. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed. I have many more great things on the way for you. And yeah, I hope you guys do give this a try. You can see just how rich and creamy it is. The key is to cook the cheesecake correctly and to not manhandle it. The crust is amazing. The cheesecake layer is nice and tangy, rich and creamy. And then the apple pie topping, caramel topping is just, it takes it over the top. It really does. It's full of flavor and the texture's on point. Give this a try, guys. You will love it. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.
I've been reading you to figure what you're down for. I wanna figure out to make it come around. No, we should quit the game and settle things right here, right now. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about all the things you do. I wanna take you from